The Ten Commandments are foundational to any civilised society, and they are the foundation for our own Australian legal system, that we might live at peace with one another in a secure society. And so the Ten Commandments are recorded twice in the Scriptures, once when they were first delivered at Mount Horeb. And now, this morning, I invite you to join me as we read from Deuteronomy chapter 5. 40 years later, Moses recounts the Ten Commandments again as the foundation on which the society is to live in the land that God is giving them, the land we now know as Israel. Moses called all Israel and said to them, "Hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments which I speak in your hearing today, that you may learn them and be careful to observe them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. The Lord did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us, those who are here today, all of us who are alive. The Lord talked with you face to face on the mountain from the midst of the fire. I stood between the Lord and you at that time, to declare to you the word of the Lord. For you were afraid because of the fire, and you did not go up the mountain. He said, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy, as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labour and do your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your ox, nor your donkey, nor any of your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates, that your male servant and your female servant may rest, as well as you. And remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there by a mighty hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Honour your father and your mother, as the Lord your God has commanded you, that your days may be long, and that it may be well with you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbour. You shall not covet your neighbour's wife, and you shall not desire your neighbour's house, his field, his male servant, his female servant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that is your neighbour's. These words the Lord spoke to all your assembly in the mountain from the midst of the fire, the cloud, and the thick darkness, with a loud voice. And he added no more. And he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone, and gave them to me. My name's Arthur, and I trust that as we share these verses together, we might be encouraged to live according to these 10 commandments that God gave the children of Israel. Of course, this was a covenant with the nation. The principles of these are repeated in the New Testament, except that there is no command in the New Testament for us to keep the Sabbath, for the simple reason that God's people, the church, are envisaged as being the poor of the earth, not in charge of society, and that they are among the nations all around, from every tribe and people and tongue and nation, but they are not necessarily in the majority and able to set the laws. Many of them will be slaves. And so, while the principle is here, and we should apply that principle in our society, yet it's not required of individual Christians. Such a rule could not possibly be kept by those who are enslaved by others. But every other commandment is repeated in the New Testament as the standard of living for God's people. First point is that this is a covenant that God made with the children of Israel, personally, face to face. And it is because God has delivered them from Egypt, and they agreed with this covenant. Therefore it is incumbent upon them. And occupation of the land is in fact dependent on them walking in a way that pleases God. Now, the first few propositions in this covenant, the largest bulk of it, talk about their relationship with God. That God is the one who rescued them from Egypt, and therefore they are not to worship any other gods. For the nations have all invented their own gods, but there is only one Lord God of heaven and earth, the creator of heaven and earth, who is over all. He has revealed himself in the scriptures, and he is the one who should be worshipped. He has revealed himself to Israel, that Israel might be his witnesses to the whole world. And a key principle that is already enunciated in earlier chapters of Deuteronomy is that they saw no form when they heard his voice, but they didn't see anything that they could make a model of. And so they are not to represent God by the likeness of anything, whether it's a man or a creature or a star, something in heaven above or on earth beneath or that is under the sea. And they are not to bow down and serve them. So if somebody else builds an image of something, we are not to bow down to it, even if it costs us our lives. As it did the early Christians, Caesar proclaimed himself as God, and he said, I want you to worship me, I want you to burn some incense to me, but the Christians refused and died sometimes horrific deaths at the hands of lions and many other cruel treatments because they refused to worship a man. Well, the principle is here, you shall not bow down to any image, for I am a jealous God. God defends his own name, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. There are consequences for our disobedience, not only for us, but for our children. But conversely, there are also consequences for our obedience, for us and for our children, for several generations, showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. In other words, God has established rules by which things happen, and if we cooperate with those rules, things work out well in general. If we do not cooperate, then things go bad. This applies particularly at a society level, and that's why we need to be conservative in the rules that we create for our society. The respecting of God is not only not to make an image, but also to honour his name, not to take the name of the Lord in vain. For God will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. And the fourth requirement was the Sabbath. Life was not all about work. The principle, when we are in a free society, we should not work all the time. 6 days you shall work, but on the seventh day you need to rest. So we are to work. We must work. We must provide for ourselves and our family, but not only work. There's not a command that you worship on the day of rest, because you should worship the Lord your God every day. Honour him with everything you do for him. But in terms of the work that we do to provide food for ourselves and for our family, we shall labour 6 days, but we shall rest on the seventh. God provided the manna 6 days, but there was none on the seventh. They had to live off what they'd collected on the Friday when it came to the Saturday. And this commandment was not just for the elite, it was to be applied to everybody. Everybody needs time of rest and recuperation. We need to sleep every night. We need to have a day off. And of course, a day of rest is a wonderful opportunity to gather with other believers and rejoice in the Lord.